Great. A warm welcome if you've just joined. Thank you very much for giving up your lunch to come and join us. And do pop your details in the chat and say where you're from so we can get a sense of who's with us in the room today. Lovely to see you. So I'm going to launch straight in so that we can make the most of our time together. The Our Shared World Learning Lunches, this is the 17th learning lunch so far. And they are intended to introduce cutting edge work from our members and friends to showcase and share and amplify their work. They aim to be collaborative and participatory, so you'll be asked to talk about a provocation. And it's really an opportunity to meet and connect with others in the network. So today, we're warmly welcoming two pioneering primary school leaders with their curriculum of hope. They come from St Ebbe's Primary School in Oxford. So a really, really warm welcome to you both, Tina Farr and Clare Whyles from St Ebbe's Primary School. I've got a slight emotional tremor because my son went to St Ebbe's for all of his primary school, and I know how impactful their approach has been. They've also worked with ThoughtBox. Our other co-chair, Holly, is unable to be with us today, but she's also worked together with Tina and Claire. And the St Ebbe's work is also part of a case study on the Climate Majority Projects campaign, Climate Courage Schools, and you can find out more about that with details we'll post in the chat about the forthcoming Climate and Nature Education Festival, in London on the 14th of March. Ellie, our other co-host, is also one of those case studies, so we've got a full circle today. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to you both, Claire and Tina, and a very warm welcome.
You so much, Kathy. So I'm Clare Whyles and this is Tina. And as Kathy said, we're coming to you from our school office, St Ebbe's in Oxford, and we are very much a city school. So please excuse any liveliness that is coming through the door or indeed literally breaches the door. We're really, really grateful to have had the invitation to speak today. And what we're going to try and do in the next 15 minutes is just share a little bit about how we see our role as cultivators of a culture and an environment of deep connection and belonging for everyone in our school community, children and adults. And we believe very strongly that if our staff are thriving and feel that they belong, so will our children. So we just want to delve, first of all, into the concept of belonging a little bit more and just really acknowledge how strong and natural the need to belong is for us as humans. So it's a powerful internal drive. Brené Brown has a lot to say on the subject of belonging. So we've included this quote, and I think that she emphasizes that innate need in us and the yearning to be part of something bigger than ourselves, but also that tension that in trying to belong, we often make allowances or perhaps hide something of ourselves. So I invite you just to take a moment right at the start of our sort of time together, just to think about a time you felt the need to perhaps change or mask something about yourself in order to fit in, and just think about how that felt. I think this feels like a pretty alive reality at the moment for lots of children and young people in our schools at this point in time. So as we acknowledge that belonging is this core human need, and we know that it can be satisfied when we join together with other people, and when we feel a sense of active connection, we also want to explore and recognise that tension around when we try and fit in or conform. Perhaps we might be showing up a little bit differently. We might not be showing up as our authentic selves, and how this can actually stop true connection. It becomes a barrier. So how do we cultivate belonging alongside this individual discovery and growth? We're going to share some of the ways that we try and help adults and children in our school explore what it is to belong to themselves, as well as belonging something bigger than themselves. So which of these two pictures do you think are most like the people in a school community? Because it may be that we've been led to believe that learning is really linear, that everyone must meet the same milestones at the same time. And the result of this is that schools can feel like they're trying to cultivate a monoculture. And the problem is that monocultures need a lot of controlling and a lot of input. It's hard work. And ultimately, it destroys the soil in which you're growing these plants, and they never truly fulfill their potential. So schools, in our mind, are much more like the wildflower meadows. They're made of people that are beautifully diverse in terms of their passions, their belief systems, their lived experiences. And in order for this wildflower meadow to flourish, it needs to work in harmony. It works as a system, and its strength comes from the natural diversity that it holds. So if our only job was to tend that wildflower meadow, we wouldn't be bowling in there trying to make sure everything was at the same point at the same time. We wouldn't be pulling them up or telling one that it wasn't good enough, it wasn't beautiful enough. So we'd tend the soil, we'd observe, we'd try and create the conditions so that that system, that natural system could thrive. We'd seek to enable its growth and not control it. So I think we felt for a long time that the need to control is really strong in our education system, and it is permeated by this sense of fear, and that moving away from a place of fear has been probably our biggest step forward in creating a culture of belonging.
Thanks, Claire. So we've got one slide which is the depressing statistics. There'll be ones that you're familiar with, and to be honest, it's why we're here, and one of the many reasons we're here. So just a few harsh realities of some of the outputs of our education system currently. So we know about the recruitment and retention crisis, and we can talk about those words, but actually when you look at the raw figures, you can see just how stark it is. And then when you add that into early careers teachers, this strongly suggests there's something extremely unhealthy and not life-giving about our education system. And then, of course, the people missing from this slide are the children. And these statistics from the Children's Commissioner that 50% of all mental health problems start by age 14. And we've got our problem with absenteeism. Now, this is a complex situation, and not all of this can be attributed to schools, but we think there's a lot that schools can do to counter some of these issues. I think we're sitting on a lot of the solutions. And the bottom line is that the people who are in our schools, a bit like those plants that Claire was talking about just now, are in some cases shadows of themselves, and they deserve to feel alive. And we think that by letting go a little bit, by allowing people to come alive and to flourish, and by really thinking about everybody belonging, we could start to reverse some of these statistics. So we've just got, this is the one with too many words on. So this is just a summary of the white paper. So you'll know that the white paper was published last week, and we're actually delighted to see that belonging is going to become a requirement. And we're slightly skeptical about that, because as soon as we start measuring something, we can turn it into a competition. But I do think it's something that schools need to be really thinking about. The words are being bandied around a lot at the moment, but we really need to think about what that means and how belonging can come as a result of our actions. So we're really pleased to see that in there. So on to some of the things that we do that we know make a massive difference. You might have seen this time, well, a couple of months ago now, we were on BBC News, and we were on there simply for playing music on the school gate. So none of what we're going to share with you is difficult. None of it requires a 10-year strategic plan. They're all small decisions that you can make. So to put music on the school gate, you just need to take a speaker out and put some music on and make sure it's safe to play out to the world. And if you saw that video, you will have seen it was packed with moments of connection like this. And this is our site manager, Gerard, who just decided one morning that he was coming out on the gate as well with us. And what we do with that welcome is that it means that everyone gets a warm welcome who comes into our school, children and parents. It means that we emanate joy down the pavement from the moment that children, and that everybody knows that we're pleased to see them. So we greet everybody by name, and we have this this kind of thing going on as well with our site managers. So that's one of our universal strategies that we can never go back from. And that started by accident because we started playing music on the build up to a school disco, but we observed the difference that it made to the community and carried on. The second thing is also music related. So at the start of each academic year, we devote 2 weeks to what we call our Connections project. And this is 2 weeks where the new staff, the new children to the classes can really bond again with each other after the 6-week summer break, and with their new adults if they've got them. So we call that the Connections Project, and it's all about celebrating different cultures and celebrating people's passions and really understanding deeply who we are and how we're showing up as individuals. And part of that, we've done this for 2 years now, part of that is we do a whole community dance. And if you look closely at this picture, you might notice there's a lot of adults in there. So these aren't just staff taking part, these are also parents. So we send it home on a video, the routine, and then parents are invited to join in if they like to. The beautiful thing about this is none of it's controlled, none of it's compulsory. And yet, because of that, everybody wants to join in. And the other striking thing about that, if you look at the children with their backs to the camera, I think out of 54 year sixes, about 30 voluntarily joined in to be at the front dancing with me. So I don't think anybody didn't do it. Everybody did it because we don't force people to do it.
So going from sort of belonging to something bigger than yourselves than to belonging to yourself, redefining what we mean by genius at our school has become one of our most powerful principles. So this is at the very root of what we do at St Ebbe's, and it's embodied by what's now known as the Genius Ball, which is the sort of glowing ball that you can see the characters here holding. So the Renaissance definition of genius refers to a few smart people with extraordinary talent. But a few years ago, we discovered this Latin definition of genius. So it's not saying that everyone can be exceptional, but it is saying that everybody has something unique to offer and that it's innate, that it's in us, it's ready to be discovered and to be nurtured. And that's what we do. We seek to discover every child and adult's passion, their genius, the thing that they'd do all day if they could, that thing that really lights them up. And children know that they're seen and they're known and loved for who they are first. So one of the ways we try and celebrate and shine a light on children's genius is through something we call our passion sharing assembly. So we gather each week and children of all ages apply to share something that they're passionate about. So they talk about how they came to discover it, how it's developed over time, and most importantly, they talk about how they feel when they're doing that thing, when they're in that moment. We've got some beatboxers in the middle there. We've had environmentalists, magicians, musicians, dancers, spider lovers. Sort of anything is accepted and anything is welcomed. And we really feel the collective power of this every week. Every time a child really pushes themselves to come to the front and present. And for some children, that takes a long time. They've done a lot of watching. A child a few months ago just asked if it would be okay if they brought up a moral support person with them so that they felt they had the confidence to be vulnerable and show us who they authentically are. So the audience, it's such a magical atmosphere. The audience are always deeply respectful. There's zero risk of shame in this assembly. And because of that, we get to witness children just growing in confidence, and we feel its power. So the message is really clear that you can be yourself in our school. You don't need permission. The invitation is always there. And that's true for the adults, right down to our very youngest children.
So following on from that theme, just quickly, when parents come to visit our school to have a look around to see if it's for them, the first question we ask after their names is, what is your child's passion? What would they do all day if they could? And you can see parents visibly relax, thinking they're surprised. They're thinking this is different than what I expected. We still do the tour. We still show how we teach maths and how we teach phonics and all those things that they would expect of a school. But we clearly communicate from the start that your child is important as an individual and we will value them first for that. And we talk about the genius definition as well. Something else that we do, was rushing through a few things here, but we really struggle with what to put in 15 minutes. We have play-based learning right up to the end of Key Stage 1. If you're with me on LinkedIn, you'll know that I talk loudly about that these days. And all it means, when we need to stop panicking about having play-based learning, because actually all it means is that the children's environment is full of materials and resources through which they can express their learning when they're not being taught directly by the teacher. And I will keep waving this flag because they still have maths lessons, they still have phonics lessons and reading lessons and guided writing and science and history and all those things. They still sit on the carpet, they still do all the things you'd expect. And they have the opportunity to use all these wonderful resources to express their learning in any way that they choose. And what happens on a daily basis is the children take their learning way further than a teacher could plan for, because they're intrinsically motivated and self-directed. So the reason I'm setting that context is I wanted to tell you Mohammed's story. So this is Mohammed. Now, it'd be fair to say that writing wasn't Mohammed's favourite thing, particularly at the start of year 2, and that's completely developmentally normal. But he is a fantastic artist. So at the age of 6, this is the kind of quality of artwork that he can produce. So he was known in the class as the person to go to for advice when you needed help with your drawing or your painting. And this is the kind of thing that happens. So he would produce a painting like this. The teacher would share this with the rest of the class. Without telling them to, the children then, lo and behold, would want to have a go at producing something like Mohammed has done. And that in turn helped him to feel seen and valued. It stopped him from being seen as not enough because his writing wasn't the same as everybody else's. And there's a really powerful message there. And the beautiful thing was, when it was time for transfer day, when he met his new teacher, he went up and he said, "Hello, Mr. Godby, my name's Mohammed, I'm an artist." And it gives me goosebumps every time I tell that story. I just want to say as well that this is the kind of comment that we get from our teachers on a regular basis. And this is particularly from a teacher who was actually quite wanting to control things too much. And again, she knows that I trust her. And she said to me as well, all I wanted was to be trusted, and it's palpable that you do. And what happens in our classrooms, they are alive as well, because the teachers, although they clearly do their plans, they know where children have got to go, they also hold their plans lightly, and they're able to follow the curiosities of the children, and they learn together. So this was what astonished the teacher, was that she was so curious herself, and she was constantly learning about the Romans. It was the first time she taught that project. And the children were then saying, "Oh yeah, last night I went on so-and-so and I learned this." And she was like, "I didn't know that." And that teacher's really shifted to a space of being a co-learner with the children, whilst also being responsible about taking them on the journey that she knows she needs to. Last bit from me for a minute is just, this is a recent discovery, again, from going on LinkedIn, and I expect lots of people on this group know about this. So this is Smart School Councils, which really, we have a junior leadership team, or a school council for want of a more common description. And we use this to host class meetings every week where the children discuss real issues for them. So this has been an amazing thing for enabling each child in the school, not just the school council, to have a voice and a say in what's going on. And again, if your voice is heard, if you can see that something you have suggested has come to fruition, then you feel a stronger sense of belonging.
So a lot of what we've done and what we've shared this morning it's come from mindfully and intentionally letting go. So letting go of like systems and ideas that no longer serve us, and just questioning why we're doing things the way we are, and being open to exploring other ways. So loosening our grip, trying not to control a living, breathing, organic system with all of its complexities has been a revelation. The job feels more inspiring, more energizing, and I think we get burnt out from trying to conform to rigid structures around us, not just the adults, the children as well, but trying to keep us within that system, particularly when we can't really see what the benefits are, where what we should be doing is allowing children and teachers to be at the edge of curiosity and alive with the joy of learning. Otherwise, it does become exhausting and demoralizing.
So it probably won't surprise you to know that we're huge Ken Robinson fans. He was the reason that I stepped into headship 14 years ago. And shortly before he passed away, this was something that he said: "You are the system, and what you do next is up to you." And as a head teacher, people often tell me that my hands are tied, and I often tell them that they're not. I think there's certain things that we absolutely must do, and we can't take our eye off in schools. We have, we're mainstream schools, we have accountability systems, we have Ofsted, we have our SATs, and we work very hard on those things and make sure that we're meeting all of our statutory requirements. But actually, how we show up and how we treat people, how we make people feel in our school is up to us. So our hands are never tied on deciding to run our school in this way. And I want to be clear as well that, when we talk about letting go, we're talking about just letting go enough for life to come to fruition. We still have rules, we still have clear expectations and boundaries. This isn't just license to run around and do what you want, but you don't have to let go very much for life to happen. So we really hold on to this.
So we're going to leave the last word with Brené Brown again. She says, true belonging doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are. So with that beautiful wild meadow in mind, we invite you to think about the provocation. What does belonging without conforming mean to you? And what ideas do you have about how we achieve this balance in school communities or whichever context you're coming to us from? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tina and Claire. What a fascinating and very well fitted trot, because you only had such a short time, really, but you've given us a real sense and flavour of that. So hopefully now in our breakout rooms, we can look a little bit more deeply into that question there. George, are you okay with the breakout rooms there? I can't see you.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah.
I'll open them up now, and there'll be about 5-6 minutes-ish to discuss, which is never enough time, I know, but
So we hope you make connections as well with the people in your room. Do join them now, and we'll give you a little sign when it's time to come back out again. Thank you so much, Tina and Claire.
You're welcome.
And do feel free to join the breakout rooms if you'd like to. Hello, welcome back. Sorry for the pitchforking you out. You're probably in mid-sentence and just getting started. The lunches are always too short, but I hope you got a chance to connect and chat with everyone. So we are a few minutes over time. If anyone has to go, we completely understand. But if you're happy to stay for a few minutes more just to feed back on what you were talking about, it'd be lovely to hear what was going on in each of your rooms. So I'm looking in room one. Is there anybody who might be happy to share a couple of tidbits? Sarah, were you from in room one?
Who, me?
Yes.
No, I was in room 4, I think.
That's fine. That's fine. No worries. Was there anything that you wanted to feed back on this provocation? What does belonging without conforming mean to you, and how do we achieve this?
I'm not sure if we actually totally addressed but what I was thinking about as we were talking, and it was so nice to hear other people. First of all, hi, Tina. I was just thinking, what resonated the most for me and what leads to that feeling of individuality is that part you were saying about teachers being curious and being able to follow their passion along with the students, because then I feel like you're seeing teachers they're modeling their own individuality too, and they're modeling the feeling that comes with that. And I feel like it's exactly like you said, like the teacher gets inspired, and so they kind of bring something in, like I'm doing now with the trees after the retreat. And then the kids get inspired, and then they find out a whole bunch more stuff, and then they bring it in, and then it, like the sparking goes both ways. And what Hugh was saying too, like that you do at St Ebbe's and what we do now with project-based learning, is the culminating event. So the kids get to express themselves at the exhibition, and so it's not conformity, but there are expectations that they meet, but it's individuality along the way. So yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else from room one? Justin, I can see you on my screen. And would you like to feedback anything that you were talking about?
We didn't conform by ignoring the request to choose a spokesperson, so I'm afraid. So in a way, we struggled in a way. Obviously, I mean, the point I made to start with was that society needs people to conform to the laws and rules and regulations, because otherwise things fall apart. And yet, what the school is trying to do is I think, is to balance the need for schooling to provide an opportunity to socialize and become part of the wider society, yet at the same point to become an individual. The Dutch educator Geert Biester talks about this in some detail, and I admire schools that grapple with this. Is how it is too easy, I think, in many education systems to conform to all sorts of implicit and explicit norms. It's actually more challenging to push those boundaries and encourage people to be themselves. So from that point of view, I think we all thought it was a good thing. But I don't want to talk my two colleagues, really.
Thank you, Justin. We were just talking about self-reflection in the break as well. So this idea that teachers also need space for self-reflection in order to be able to engage that sense of belonging in students. You were mentioning, Tina. So anyone from room two? I had Catherine, Elena, Richard, and Eugenia, if anybody wants to feedback anything. Ellie, you look like you're on the mic there.
Very kindly going to summarise for us. He did such a good job in the room. Is that okay, Richard?
Thank you. So we had a lovely conversation. The conversation had a real flow to it. So Catherine started by talking about emergence and the work she's doing with Fritjof Capra and individual potential within the diversity of a community. So how you nurture that individual potential, all referencing the lovely presentation earlier, and celebrating the diversity within a school, within a class, within nature, of course, as well. Then we moved on from there to Eugenia talking about this idea of interdependence and how that's relational with people, of course, and we see it in terms of everything being connected in nature. So the lovely example of an apple tree, and the roots and the trunk and the branches and the leaves and the flowers and the fruits are all connected. So we had that lovely sense of things working when they are working together. And I was referencing the work that I do, as many of you know, around harmony. So values-based, but also looking at principles of harmony in nature and what they teach us about this sense of everything belonging, everything having a role to play, and everyone having a role to play. And Elena summarized it just by saying how much she loved being connected to the group, how much she loves the work of Brené Brown, and a lovely comment at the end that we need to promote teachers as builders of belonging and find ways to support them on that journey. Thank you.
Oh, that's lovely. Amazing you managed to get that all into 6 minutes or something. Volley of applause, Richard. Well done.
Thank you.
And thank you for contributing that. So room three, I've got Kate and Liz and Martin. Does anyone feel like leaping in? It's absolutely fine if I'm not sure if we've still got everybody there with us, so not to worry. And in room four, any contributions from room four at all? So Sarah, in fact, we've already had, so sorry.
We have already done that.
Lovely. Okay. So as always, far too little time. We have gone well over time today, but I'm going to hand over to Anne, who's going to tell us about the next learning lunch. But before I do, Tina and Claire, thank you so much. So inspiring, so wonderful to hear all of those things that you're doing. So thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, a very big thank you. And I feel that the next learning lunch flows on quite nicely from this, because if one of the things you're trying to do is do things differently from, a very knowledge rich or assessment based education system, whether you're inside the classroom or helping from the outside, it really does start to raise questions about evaluation and assessment, and how are you going to understand for yourself as a teacher or an educator, the progress that you're making or the impact that you're having, or whether you should do things differently. So the next one is on the 14th of April. We thought it was a week earlier, but that's in the middle of the holidays. So it's the 14th of April at 1:15. And it's challenging us to think about evaluation assessment for learning for sustainability. And we'll explore the thinking, the models, and there are a lot of them out there, and compare some current practices. But what I'd really love you to do before then is send me any questions and thoughts beforehand. So if you've got a challenge around assessment or evaluation, or a question you keep asking yourself, do send it to me, and then we'll weave that into the session so that it becomes even more participatory, and it's not just me talking, which I can do, but whatever. Meantime, there's two things we need to tell you about. One is the fact that the St Ebbe's case study and the Seed case study and the Les case study, there's lots of case studies, are all available now on the Transformative Learning for Sustainability report that you can find on the Our Shared World website, and the links are in the chat. But if you just go to the Our Shared World website, it's on the homepage. And also there is a Climate and Nature Education Festival coming up on Saturday, the 14th of March. I think I've got that the right day, in London, right between Euston and King's Cross, so quite easy to get to at a school. It's very much part of the unions in the UK. Their week on climate education, climate. So this is part of the education thing. I believe there are still some tickets available. We've got Elena here who will be doing the closing speech. She's well and truly in it, and I'm sure other people are as well. So last time I looked, I thought that there are still tickets, aren't there?
There are, and I've popped the link in the chat
Great.
a couple of times, so please do. Between now and our next learning lunch, it would be great to have you there. It's a one-day event for educators, activists, politicians, business leaders, exploring a just transition. The event will culminate with the release of a co-created statement to share the learnings and outcomes of the day, and will also be the first launch of the National Emergency Briefing for school teachers. So we're ahead of the National Emergency Briefing main release, which doesn't take place until the 7th of April. We're aiming to support school teachers with the release of this information for the National Emergency Briefing, and we'll be delivering that during the day. So if you can make it, please do come. It would be a pleasure to see you. Thanks, Anne.
Lovely. And we're hoping to have an Our Shared World banner there to show people that this is a place that we do have these conversations. But it does mean we have to raise some money to do that. I mean, they're not terribly expensive, but we have put a donate button on the Our Shared World website. It just helps us cover what for Our Shared World are some very minimal costs to keep us going, which we've been doing. And Kate, I think Kate's gone now. Kate was the starter of all this when she was at Oxfam back in 2019. So here we are 7 years on, still as a growing network. So thank you all very much for participating, coming in when it interests you, and really, adding to this lovely warm space that we have. So a big thank you from all of us, and hope we'll see you either in London or online on April the 14th. And a big thank you back to Tina and Claire. That was fantastic, ladies.